I'm surrounded by some of the best Americans that have ever been produced in this country, and I have told them they may not go home to their families, and they darn well know it. But you know what? Our freedom is worth fighting for and worth dying for. Would rather the other guys die trying to take it, but if that sacrifice needs to be made, by God, we'll make it.
People continue to be very passionate about the rights of Cliven Bundy, the Nevada rancher who refuses to pay the $1 million he owes the federal government in cattle grazing fees. In fact, that guy from the tape we just played drove 3,000 miles from New Hampshire so he could stand with Cliven Bundy against what supporters see as the tyrannical government forces that tried to collect Bundy's cattle. Bundy has rested his refusal to pay the federal government for grazing rights on his claim that his family has ancestral rights to the land, which is now managed by the Bureau of Land Management.
He argued that his ancestors, they worked this land since the 1870s, long before the Bureau of Land Management was formed, granting him the rights to the property.
Well, a reporter with KLAS in Nevada decided to do a little digging. It turns out those ancestral rights don't go back very far. While Cliven Bundy does have a maternal grandmother who was born in Nevada in 1901 and may have helped settle the town where the ranch is located, Bundy's parents didn't buy the ranch until 1948. And the Bundy family's cattle did not start grazing on the land until 1954. So Bundy's claim of ancestral rights over the Bureau of Land Management seems pretty darn tenuous, seeing as the BLM was formed 8 years before Bundy's family's cattle started grazing on the land. So, with that being reported, I guess everyone's just going to go home now, right? Joining me now, Nevada political journalist John Ralston, host of Ralston Reports, which is broadcast on Nevada NBC affiliates. John, it strikes me that this guy is a bit of a kind of, local, colorful eccentric who has now become the rallying point for all these folks. Do they realize just how legless the claim is?
Well, of course they don't. They're all there for different reasons. You had that guy who was saying all kinds of nonsense. This is not about freedom. But let me tell you this, Chris. What if he's right? Well, what if he really his rights go back to 1877? There were rights there before. You know who those rights belong to on that land? The Moapa Paiutes. I don't hear Cliven Bundy saying he's going to give the land back to the Indians because that's who really has the rights to the land. Again, as I've said before, this is a completely phony issue. He is not a freedom fighter. He's not standing up for state sovereignty. He is a guy trying to get away without paying fees that many other ranchers, including hundreds of other ranchers in northern and rural Nevada, pay here.
John, you make a great point. It's something of a Pandora's box if we're going to start opening up land title questions of who owned what land in the United States of America in 1870.
Right. Right, exactly. And this has nothing to do with that. This has to do with a guy who has been grazing his cattle illegally on federal land. The feds came in to round up the cattle. The money thing, I think, is secondary here, Chris. Yes, he owes a lot of money, but they didn't come. They weren't bill collectors. Right. This is how Michelle Fiore, the assemblywoman you had on, and who was shooting her mouth off all over the place, wants to make people think. And that's what those folks up there want people to think, that these are armed feds coming in to collect a bill. That's not why they were there. They were there to round up the cattle. The trespass fees that he owes, completely different issue.
So then what happens next? I mean, you basically have this standoff, and the question is, well, what does Cliven Bundy just continue to kind of lawlessly do his thing? What's the next move there?
Very, very delicate situation because you still have some of those folks and they are armed. The BLM does need to do something, but for 2 decades, the BLM let him do this and fearing that there would be some kind of armed confrontation and maybe bloodshed. I have no doubt that Harry Reid and others have talked to law enforcement, federal, state, and local, and that there will be a plan. But I don't think it's going to happen today. I don't think it's going to happen tomorrow. I think they're going to wait a while, Chris, but they will do something. They have to do something lest this precedent be set for other ranchers. It just will not happen.
Yeah, that's a good point, and I think it is the kind of thing where you let kind of the air come out of this bubble a little bit and then maybe proceed about just sort of enforcing the most basic rule of law. John Ralston, host of Ralston Reports. Always a pleasure, John. Thanks.
Thanks, Chris.
All right, coming up, the Supreme Court is slowly chipping away at the infrastructure that has helped try to end racial discrimination in this country for decades. What the court did today is big news. We'll talk about it ahead.